the Song of Solomon. All right, so today, there we go. Okay, so today we're going to start off the book. I'm just looking if there's anything else I left out yesterday in our introduction. Not really. So, and I believe actually, let's see here. So, chapter 1, verse 1, and what I have maybe going down to chapter 2, verse 7 is like act number 1 or scene number 1. So this kind of comes out like a play almost. And so there's going to be these different scenes. And it starts off in verse 1, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. So Solomon was supposed to have written 1,005 songs. We've got this one. But this one is the song above all songs. It's a superlative phrase like King of Kings, Lord of Lords, or the Holy of Holies. And so this is the song above all songs, which is also why this has different names. This book is sometimes called the Song of Solomon. Other times it's called the Song of Songs. Song of Songs is what it's called in Hebrew, Shir Hashirim, and that's, you know, what it means. Like this just down a tiny bit. Oh yeah, there we go. And so, yeah, that's what we're learning about is the song, his number 1 song. And so it starts off with the Shulamite. Let's see here. What does my Bible say? My Bible says a Palestinian young woman. The speaker and audience are identified according to the number, gender, and persons in the Hebrew, occasionally identifying not certain. Oh, yeah. So that's something. My Bible actually notes that the speaker is not always able to be identified. So it depends on what Bible you're reading. If you are reading out of a New King James, like I am, before verse 2, it says the Shulamite. So that was added by translators. And I only bring that up because there are a couple places where I actually think they may have gotten it wrong. And they is the modern translators, not the Bible, not the original Hebrew, right? But the people who translated into English. So the NIV and the ESV and the NASB and the NLT and the, you know, whatever, all these different Bibles, they all have translators. And so these guys, they're trying to make it easier for the average person to understand. And in all honesty, having these titles probably makes it a whole lot easier for most of us to understand. But we need to remember that maybe they guessed wrong. And so maybe we'll get to that sometime today. I think it might be in there somewhere. Oh yes. But the Shulamite. Now, I don't think I have written down anywhere in my notes here. I don't. But let's just quickly flip on over to 1 Kings. I don't exactly know where I'm going, to be honest. I don't have that. 1 Kings 1 would be the best place to start. And so, Abishag. Right, that's her name. I almost forgot that. So in 1 Kings chapter 1, David was old, advanced in years. They put covers on him, and they could not get him warm. Therefore his servant said, let a young woman, a virgin, be sought for our lord the king. Let her stand before the king, and that stand before means to serve. And let her care for him, and let her lie in your bosom, that our lord the king may be warm. So they sought for a lovely young woman throughout all the territory of Israel, and they found Abishag the Shunammite, right, and brought her to the king. The young woman was very lovely, and she cared for the king and served him, but the king did not know her. So, here's the idea. Well, first off, Shunammite and Shulamite. I remember Chuck Missler talking about how there's a possibility that those words are connected. The Shulamite and Shunammite, they obviously sound very similar, but there's an N versus an L. And sometimes there are places and things where, depending on where you were from and depending on, people pronounce things differently. And there are names in the Bible that you'll actually see them slightly different in 2 different places. And it was just because of, you know, dialect and regions and whatnot. She was to be a virgin. because it'd be really awkward for someone's wife to be snuggling with the king. Might sound weird for us, for anyone to be snuggling with the king, but the whole idea was like they tried blankets. It says that no matter how many blankets they threw on him, he just felt cold all the time. Well, if someone falls into a lake, you learn that the best way to warm those people back up again is to put them in a sleeping bag with another person. That's like the best way to warm someone up, is the one person's body heat will help the other person out. So obviously you don't want someone's wife, so that's why they pick a virgin, an unmarried woman. And of course they pick a beautiful one, because when you're the king, you don't want to be snuggling up with an ugly girl. That's just a joke. But, I mean, it's the king, right? I mean, they find him a beautiful young woman, but it's very explicit. He did not know her, right? There was nothing sexual about this at all. So they try and be really clear about that. The young woman, right, she did not know her. So now, she now phases off. We don't hear anything about her. And it begins this whole situation with Adonijah. I accidentally said Ammon a couple times yesterday. But yeah, no, it was Adonijah, and I did correct myself. And so you see all this stuff with Adonijah. David proclaims Solomon as king. He gets killed. I'm looking for Adonijah. So Adonijah is doing just fine. But then in verse 13 of chapter 2, so in 1 Kings chapter 2, and we'll get back to Song of Solomon, but this is the background I mentioned yesterday, so we're just looking at it. Adonijah, the son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and said, "Do you come peaceably?" "Yes, I'm peaceably. I got something to say." Verse 15, "You know that the kingdom was mine. Israel had set their expectations on me, but however, right, your brother gets it. So I have one petition." Verse 16, "Do not deny me." So she says, "Well, say it then. What's this one petition of yours?" He says, "Please speak to King Solomon, for he will not refuse you, that he may give me Abishag the Shunammite as wife." So here we have it, that he wants Abishag to be his wife. And so Bathsheba says, "Very well." Well, Bathsheba goes before the king, and so she asks, 21, "Let Abishag the Shunammite given to Adonijah." And King Solomon answered and said to his mother, "Now why do you ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my older brother. For him and for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah." Then the king swore by the Lord, saying, "May God do so to me, and more also, if Adonijah has spoken this word against his own life. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, who has confirmed me and set me on the throne of David my father, who has established a house as he's promised, Adonijah shall be put to death today." So King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and struck him down, and he died. So, backing up now to the book of Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, what we find was obviously asking for this Shunammite and her hand in marriage really set Solomon off. Why would that matter to Solomon at all, unless Solomon himself had set his eyes upon Abishag the Shunammite? She would have been from a town up in Ephraim. I think I'm right on that one. Chapter 8, is it chapter 8 it mentions it? I believe it's up in Ephraim. And so, I'm looking around to see if I can verify that. We'll find out where she's from. Fair enough. I don't have everything memorized. And so she's from this town, and they would have brought her in, and she would have done, been there for the king, and the king would die, and then she'd get sent back. And so maybe she didn't ever meet Solomon. Solomon didn't seem to be around much, and Solomon was actually probably pretty young. And so there is a chance that if she was just serving David in David's, royal chamber, and it's one of those things like, send out the help while we have official conversation, she may have never even really met Solomon, but Solomon probably had his eye on her. And maybe time went by. Maybe Solomon actually was younger and she was older, and, a few years of maturity go by, and, Solomon changes and she wouldn't recognize Solomon. Solomon grows a beard, etc., etc. And so here is this banquet now. So the idea is we're already at a wedding banquet. They haven't gotten married, but they are betrothed, okay? So a betrothal has happened. These people have met, and there's a banquet going on, and they're having this ceremony for the betrothal. And the idea with the betrothal was Mary and Joseph were betrothed. It's very different from engaged today. They had an engagement also, and that came before betrothal. And the idea was, is engagement like today was an agreement that we're going to get married and could be broken off relatively easily, just like today. Whereas for them, then there was a middle step that we don't have today of betrothal. The price is paid for the bride. So the man would pay the father of the bride for her, and there would be a whole ceremony. And at that point, you would have to officially divorce her. But there's been no official wedding. You have like a betrothal party, but not a wedding. There's been no official wedding. And so there's been no consummation of the marriage. There's been no sexual intimacy between the couple. And so after the bride price is paid, the groom then would go back to his father's house. He would prepare a place for his bride, right? And back then they would just kind of build on. And so this is the pictures. If you're from Revival Church, we just talked about this in John 14, where Jesus says, behold, I go to prepare a place for you, right? In my Father's house, there's many mansions. And the idea was that there's many rooms and rooms added on, that this estate has been built onto, and different families live in different parts. And so the groom would go, and then right before the wedding night, he whisks his bride away. He shows up and carries her off. And they actually just go straight off and consummate the marriage. And then they come back, and there's a big like post party that goes on. In fact, the party starts without them. It's kind of like the party gets going, hey, and then they come back, from the bridal chamber. And I'm not even at verse 2. We just started talking about the beginning of verse 2, and I'm already running out of time. So let's just say this. If you haven't caught the picture, this book is about a groom and his bride. And we have already been purchased. We are the bride of Christ. We've been purchased. He came. And when he died on the cross, he purchased us. And this cannot be broken off easily. We're fully betrothed. An official divorce has to happen, right? So the idea is we are locked in now. The price has been paid. But he has left. He's gone to prepare a place for us. But he's going to return. There is the parable of the foolish virgins, right? Where there's the bridesmaids, and then the groom comes and people aren't ready and they don't get to go because they weren't ready, right? And so this idea is that he's going to come back for us at a time which we don't expect. And he's going to whisk us away. And you look in Revelation 19, and while there's all the craziness going down on the earth, it's been going on since like chapter 6, right? Just all this craziness in the book of Revelation. But in chapter 19, there is Christ in heaven with his bride while all this stuff is going on. The bride's already there waiting. And then at the end of 19, Christ returns on a white horse with his bride. So the church is taken up. It's there, comes back with Christ. And so kind of a cool thing how the wedding feast and the marriage and all of that really plays right in. So now that we know how it all works, we've only made it one verse. Tomorrow, we'll start diving into this lovely relationship between the bride and her groom, her betrothed, her beloved. Take care.